Hi all, it's Kylie from Kylie's Card Craft. Thought today what we'd do is go through some tips and tricks for stamping. I've been teaching classes for around 15 years, and no matter whether it was 15 years ago, 5 weeks ago, I'm still always asked about stamping. Now, stamping is my first love. It's what I got into many moons ago, and still is my favourite thing that I will put in my scrapbooking, I'll put in my card making, I'll put in my altered books and journals. No matter what sort of paper craft I'm doing, somewhere there tends to be stamping in it. I just find that it's so versatile, you can get so much from it. But people are still a bit hesitant, we can get a beautiful image, we may get a flattened out image, parts missing, and people tend to be a little bit scared of it sometimes. So I thought today what we'd do is just a quick tutorial on getting a perfect image with your stamps, how to go about it, what sort of stamps we've got. So you can see in front of us here the different types of stamps that we've got. You've got wood-mounted stamp. Now, these are from the early days. This is what they all used to be. I think I still have my first wood-mounted stamp that I purchased back on 1995, I think, was when I first got into it, and I've still got my original stamp. It's a little holly. It's a little square, 1 inch by 1 inch, with a holly leaf on it. Wood-mounted stamps are in red rubber. What you'll find with the rubber that you'll get over the acrylic that we'll go into later is lots more detail, because the rubber can be etched and cut into properly to give so much more detail. The wood-mounted ones were great. They were nice and solid. They gave you a really good impression. The problem with the wood-mounted ones, there's a couple of problems. You can't see exactly where you're stamping. So every now and again you'd buy a wood-mounted stamp and the stamp would be adhered onto the wood block slightly crooked, which really mucked up if you were finishing off your project with the last stamping piece, which is probably why still to this day when I stamp something to go on a page or whatever else, I'm more inclined to stamp it onto a proper sheet and then cut it out and adhere it to my page, because so many times these guys were slightly crooked or whatever else, so that you couldn't see exactly where you were stamping. The other problem with wood-mounted stamps is that they were hard to store. If you had lots and lots and lots of them, they took up so much room, and you needed to be able to see what you had. Or if you were going to crop days or retreats, it made for a very heavy bag just to take a few stamps. Stamps then, I don't know, 10, 15 years, maybe 20 years ago, started coming out in a clear acrylic. Now, not all clear stamps are the same. You'll have different types of clear stamps. You'll get polymer, you'll get the clear acrylic. There's a few different versions. Some will stamp better than others. The companies that they're from are usually the difference with them. So regardless, the cheaper they are, the less likely they're going to stamp perfectly for you. Look, don't get me wrong, you will find some that'll stamp beautifully at a couple of bucks. And you will find some very expensive ones that still won't stamp 100%. But what I want to show you today is how to get the most out of when you're stamping it, how to get that 99% factor where you're going to get a perfect image. So, as I said before, wood-mounted, which are your rubber ones. These days, your wood-mounted ones tend to come like that, no wood. So you've still got that beautiful etched rubber. So you can see different colours in your rubbers. This is a Tim Holtz one. His tend to be this lighter colour. This is a Stamperia one. So you know, there's lots of different colours in these red rubbers. Sometimes you'll find them in a grey. I know I kept saying red rubber, but for the most part, that's what they were, which is just ingrained in my mind as red rubber. But what we're looking at is the rubber. What they are on foam. So you can see in here, I can push my hand in here. So it gives you that sponge so that when you're stamping, it allows it to move a little bit. What you'll also get, which is the difference with these, so your clear ones are no foam in there, but the difference between your, so here's a different brand, you'll feel how thick and how squashy your clear ones are. The squashier they are means that you'll lose some of your delicate features. So for some of the images, that's fine. You don't need a really fine image. But for some of them, like I'm going to stamp this one in a moment, so he's got lots of fine lines. If it's a really squashy, cheap stamp, you'll find when you press down, that fine line becomes a couple more mil wide, which may be fine, but you're not, boom. But it means you're not going to get that beautiful detailed edging. So some of these, you'll see have all these beautiful little lines in them. If it's too cheap a stamp, when you push down, all of that's going to squash out and you'll lose all this detail and it'll just become a blur. Right, they're your different types of stamps. So how do we stamp them? Well, these guys are already done. They're on their block. Next came your acrylic blocks. So I don't know if you can see that. So they're just an acrylic block. Acrylic blocks tended to have come lots of different forms. I like that one. He's one of my favourites because he's got the lines on there so I can line things up. Larger one. This one has your soft edges in here. For gripping, you'll get, there he is. You'll get them all the way down to small, large, long, skinny, thin, etc. All sorts of sizes with your acrylic block. These days, what you'll find are your stamping platforms, which technically is your acrylic block here. Gives you that foaming, and I'll show you more about the foaming in a moment. And it allows you, when you stamp, to go back over your image if you've misstamped. Not everyone can afford a stamping platform. That's fine. You might want to only want to stamp occasionally. You don't want to go to the whole hog going out and purchasing a stamping platform for the odd stamp, but you still want a good image. So that's what today is going to be all about. How to get that image from your stamps carefully and using whatever you've got without having to go and outlay a lot of money. So what we'll do is I'll just pop those aside. So we'll start with our wooden ones. Right, so I'm going to stamp on that. This is both of these, just a small one and a large one. We'll start with that small one. We'll work our way up. So the wooden blocks, as you can see down here, have a groove in them, which allowed your fingers to sit in. Okay? Now, when you ink up your stamps, for this one I'm just using an archival ink. It's a permanent ink and it's quick drying, which means I won't get any smudging or anything else. They will work on all my rubber stamps and my clear stamps. I find, for those of you that follow me, you'll know that I'm forever using distress inks. Love my distress inks, but I'm not overly keen on them with the acrylic stamps. They have a tendency to react and leave little bubbles would be the best thing. So you'll get quite a patchy finish. To get a better finish, you can seal these stamps with some permanent ink, but we'll go on to that another one. I digress at the moment. Today's one is mainly about stamping, not our inks. So in saying that, as I said, I'm just using a permanent ink because it's nice and quick. When you stamp, don't stamp like that. We need to ink up this stamp. Don't do that. What happens is you end up, everything's side on, you're not getting a perfect flat image. Put your ink pad down on a smaller stamp and take your stamp to your ink pad. So just lightly push him in. You'll see the shine on the top. Always look back at your stamp. You'll see where you've got it, where you may have missed it. Now, when we're going to go and stamp, we want to turn him around. Could have been upside down. Middle finger and thumbs. That way your pointer fingers are your pressure points. So, make sure I'm in shot. So, tapping down. This part of my hand is what's going to go onto my card. There's a reason for that. What I want to do, what a lot of people do when they're stamping is they'll go, oh yeah, just, you know, and what'll happen, I don't know if you can see that, see how he's thicker, see how he's more, what'll happen is you'll get the wobbles up. You get scared of stamping. You don't want to ruin this wonderful project that you've been working on. And so you stamp up and you go, oh yeah, I know it needs to go in there. You get the shakes. So how do you stop your hand from shaking? As I said before, use this part of your hand so that that's sitting flat on the table, which means that once you've inked up your stamp, all that you're doing is going up so that you're sitting him about that far away. So you've only got that 1/2 inch to 1 inch where your stamp is going up and down, not all of that. When you stamp, you're straight down. Don't take both hands off the stamp. Give him a pressure. Rock him a little bit if it's required. Some of these older ones do. And then you lift him straight back up so that you get this perfect form. The other way that you'll get an even better form, now that's going straight on glass. What you can get are stamping mats. Now, these ones I've had for years and they came with a certain stamp company and I can't quite remember. They're a solid foam. You will find that sort of thing comes in your stamping platforms as well. Some of the companies, close to my heart, Stampin' Up, have different other little bits of foam as well that you can quite often get with your stamps. An upside down mouse mat. Now, in saying that, I spent this week trying to find an old mouse mat to show you. Mouse mats have changed. They're not what they used to be 20 years ago. And if they've got that ripple on them, I would probably suggest not. So if you've got one of the really old mouse mats, go for that. So in trying to find something else that would work, I went out to one of the cheap shops, you know, the cheap $2 shops, and found some craft foam. So you can see it's just normal thin craft foam that they use in the kids' craft and all the rest. Got one of these, cut it in half, glued the 2 sheets together just with my normal wet white glue. Now, when I glued it, I just glued around the edges and have made myself another stamping foam so that when I've got bigger ones, bigger stamps and some of my huge backgrounds, it'll work on that. So what you're going to do, whether it's this sort of one or this sort of one, sit your cardstock or your paper on to your foam. Then when you ink him up, and you're going down again, what you're doing is pushing into your foam, which just allows, so see now, this is where I was just going on the glass. Now I've got my full image, because sometimes they might be slightly bent in, slightly curved, and so it'll give you a pressure point. When you're also stamping, depending on your setup at home, I have a wooden table here, proper wooden dining table, and I have a glass mat, craft mat that I work on. If you're at a retreat or a crop day, or if you've got a setup in a room and you're using a trestle table, be it a wooden trestle table or the plastic blow mould trestle tables, always take your stamping to the corner of the table, directly over where the leg is situated. That way your table won't want to bend with you. You'll get a firmer area and it'll give you a better pressure point. So if you're working on a normal wooden table that's like a dining room table or a desk, something like that, you're going to be fine. But if you're starting to work on trestle tables, be them, as I said, either plastic or the wooden ones, find where the leg comes from the corners and stamp over that. Right, so there's your little one. Nice and easy, as I said, like that. Let's say we want to go into a slightly big one. Give you another hint. I never clean my stamps, sorry. So if you're having freaks over that now, sorry. If you're not, that's fine. Right, let's say we want to go into a bigger stamp. Still in the wooden one. Turn him over so that we've got a larger area. Now this time, I could do this wooden stamp. I'm not going to see where I'm going. So what I'm going to do this time is take my ink pad to my stamp. Again, making sure it's flat on the table. When I ink it up, I'm going to work my way over. So you'll see my ink pad is going in different directions. It's so I don't end up with lines going across. The other thing you don't want to do, and we all want to sit there and just go, yep, ink up my stamp. If you've got really fine ones, like, hang on a moment, we're stuck, like this Tim Holtz one, because it's a photo quality type one, what you'll find is that you fill up all these tiny little markings with ink, so you lose them. So when you're doing a larger stamp than just, your standard up and down one, always tap. So we're going up and down, going in different directions so we don't end up with lines from our ink pad going across. Now, same as before, you can see that, yep. Finger and thumb, hands on desk, pressure point there. Don't take both hands off at the same time, as I said before, but because it's a larger stamp, you want to use the rest of your fingers just to push down. Back to that hand. This time, we're going over this way. Okay? So that what you've got is your full image. Let's go back over here. Right? So that's your larger ones. Now that's on a wooden block. Let's say we want this one. We'll grab a new sheet of paper and we'll go back to him in a moment. Now, this one's our unmounted, they call these. They still have their foam on them, ready to go. That's just an easy mount cling foam. So if we want, going into our acrylic block this time, and the easiest way is sitting it down, popping your block on, giving him a good push to start with so that you don't end up with any air bubbles between your stamp and your acrylic block. Otherwise, it might end up giving you different patterns on the other side, if that makes sense. So, when you're going with this one, now I know my rose goes this way, but you'll find it's easier to turn your stamp around so that it fits in your hands better. So in which case, I need to turn this around. I need to stamp up or ink up my stamp. So you'll see when I put him down, see what I mean about all the lines. And that's why we go that way. so that you're not ending up with lines across your stamp. The other reason you're doing it this with your stamp facing up is you can see exactly where you've inked, where you haven't inked, where you need to re-ink again. So going over, turning him over, middle fingers again, thumbs again, down, my hands are on the table, down, and again, giving it that push with your other hand, going back to the handhold position, giving him a push, and then you can lift him up. What you've got is a perfect image. Okay, so that's that way. That's an acrylic block. Right, so I'll find somewhere to put that. Now, let's say we've got a smaller one. I find acrylic block wise, as I said before, I like the ones, I don't know if you can see that, hang on a moment. How's that? Can you see that it's got lines through it? Makes it so much easier. So I can continue to work on this. I can work on the other one. We'll work on the other one now just so that you can see that there really is no difference. And he should still fit on there for me. Yep, beautiful. So, as I said, I work on a grid on the bottom and I work on a grid on that. Now I could line this up with my writing on my grid down here, or I can just line it up with my grid on my on my acrylic block. So I will line up my lines, and I'm hoping to do that because I'm looking at such a distance. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to nick that and make sure I'm... Yep, because I've got it so far out, I'm looking at an angle. So once it's on my block and I know my stamp is straight, I'm going to sit this one on there. So you can see it's a lot smaller, this foam. Great for doing little ones, but when you're getting into the larger ones, you really need a larger size. And as I said, they were just A4 size sheets. I think they came 2 in a packet, and I've just cut it in half and glued around the edges and glued the 2 together. So again, this one, I will take my ink pad to him because I know I'm getting a flat position for my stamp as I go. Sitting him here, turning him round, and again, middle finger, thumb, down, giving him a push because he's got all that fine writing. I don't want to miss my writing. And there I have it. Now, there's my image. If I went on to stamping platform, so let's say I've got a stamping platform, move my mirror, you'll see that this guy already has his foam underneath. I keep my foam under it at all times. We'll sit this one in here. I'll just stick my paper in. This is my stamp. Now I'm going to have to just wipe my stamp so that it's not dirty to start with, because it'll still have a bit of ink on it. Just my good old cloth. You can use baby wipes. Baby wipes clean stamps beautifully. And then just pat them dry with either an old bed sheet or some paper towel. Try not to rub paper towel over it because you'll leave paper towel parts in all of these. Now, at this one you work out where it is you want to go on here, and then hope. Let's just even you up a little bit. You'll do. Right, I'll move over so that you can actually see all this, and we'll go over here. So now what I want to do, again, I'm going to take my ink pad to my stamp, But I'm not going to worry about it too much this time because I don't necessarily need him too thick. Watch. Sitting him over, giving him a good push. We know he's not going anywhere, so I don't need to go middle finger and thumb. And across, lifting him up. So, cool. See how this bit's been missed? If I lift that up, can you see how that's all been missed in that middle section? That's where the stamping platforms come into their own. So what I can do is now re-ink him up. I know it was this section, which is this bit. And if you'll notice with my, and it is just this stamp, because with my one that I stamped myself with that stamping platform, you'll notice it's a little bit light in here again as well. So I know that this stamp does that. So now we've re-inked him. Putting him back over, he's automatically going to match up with where he was. And we know that it was this section just here. So I'll give him a push again. And it's this section just here that I want to give a bit more firmer push to. Still like it. And over. Am I going in the right spot? Yes, I think I am. That bit just there. But it allows you to go back each time if you haven't. Right. There we go. So what the stamping platform does is allows you to go back over each time and re-stamp onto it. That becomes very hard when you're just doing it with an acrylic block. You can do it. Your patience needs to be really, really good, but you can do it. The other thing I want to show you, I'm going to wipe him before you can see where I've sat them all on here. And he's not spot on, he's just slightly lighter ink. Right, the other thing I want to show you is with your clear ones. Now when you go to pull, your clear ones will come on a sheet of acetate, usually front and back. Quite often with the pattern printed on the outside of the acetate as well. Do I have a stamp set here that hasn't been used? Because I restore mine. Here we go. Let's have a look. Right. Uniquely Creative. It's an Australian company. Right, so when you'll see that they have a sheet of acetate and, right, so you'll see that they have their little image on there as well. Mine I re-put on and then put into books with a stamped image in front of them so that I can group them all together. So this is just a little pot. It has raised edge on one side, flat edge on the other. These ones are nice and sticky. The Uniquely Creative ones are nice and sticky, will stick really well to all your acrylic blocks or your stamping platforms, etc. The reason I'm not using these today is because I want something long to show you something slightly different. I'm going to get rid of my stamping platform. Move it over there to my mess. So when you've got something like this, when you first purchase a set, they're going to be hard to take off the acrylic, the acetate that they're on. So if it's something long like this, don't get it and just rip it off. You run the risk of tearing them, stretching them, etc. So lift him up. Once you've had it for a while, they come off quite easily, but to start with, they might be a little bit hard. And just slowly work your way down. The other thing with the acrylic stamps is that over time, if you're anything like me, look, I can see dog hair on that already. If you're anything like me, we have lots of things going on in our desk. There's bits of paper, there's bits of dust, there's bits of fluff from fabrics and ribbons, there could be glitter, that's always a big one. And over time, they lose their sticky. So they just cling to your acrylic blocks like the other ones, like your rubber ones. If you find that it has lost its sticky or its tackiness, a little bit of warm water, a little bit of dishwashing liquid, just pop a little bit of dishwashing liquid on it, get some water and just rub your finger in it and clean it, rinse it off with cool water again, leave it to air dry. What it does is it gets all the little bits off it that it's just naturally picked up in its life. It'll allow it to then go back onto your block, but please just let it air dry. If you then pick it up and get your tea towel, get a cloth, get some paper towel and wipe it over, what you'll end up doing is putting all that fluff back on that flat side again. So it's just a matter of, once they get to the point where they won't cling to your acrylic block, just a little bit of dishwashing liquid on the flat side, a little bit of warm water. That's all you're going to need. You don't need a brush or anything else. Don't go too hard at them. Now, going back to this one. Here's a long one. Now, I've got this one. Oh, not going to fit. I've got that other nice big long one. Take that one off. Yes, he would fit on an angle on that one, right? Let's say that's a bit bulky and I've got to try and get it up, this way, and it's hard to hang on to. Or I don't have an acrylic block, but I still really want to stamp. Look at what you already have around the house. So with this sort of one, I just went and raided my son's pencil case. As you can see, it's a well-loved ruler. A clear ruler, okay? Flat on one side, slightly rounded on the other. We're going to go on the flat side. All we're going to do, and there's our stamp, so that he's already on there. We'll go back to our mat, sitting it down. Now I want to use this one as a border. How about I go up the right way first? We're going to go that way. Right, there he is. So I'm going to go like so. So once again, ink him up just the same as if he was on an acrylic block or if he was on my stamping platform or whatever else. You don't have to spend the earth to start off. You might just want to see if you're going to like stamping or if you're going to actually do stamping. This way, you don't have to go out and spend everything just to get yourself set up. It's something that you can check out as you go. Sitting him down, you'll notice my fingers are still middle finger and thumb. I'm going to even him up, sit him down, move my hand along, and then just pick him up. What I've got is my perfect stamped border going down here from a ruler. So it just goes to show you don't need 1,000,001 things. You can pick up your acrylic stamps, anything from a couple of bucks upwards. To start with, if you don't get into stamping, if you're not into stamping and you're not doing lots of it and all the rest, but you'd want to have a go, by all means, go out and find yourself a cheapy little acrylic stamp. Remember, if it is a cheapie, you don't want to push too hard because you will lose all that detail. All of that will flatten out. But practice. It's only paper. Just practice on some normal little copy paper, like so. Okay? Just your normal copy paper that we all tend to have bits and pieces and scraps sitting around. Well, I know I do. So if you do, and then, you've got your stamp, you've gone and found yourself an ink. As I said, there's lots and lots of inks. We will do inks in another one, but if you get yourself a permanent ink or a dye ink to start with, they are quick drying inks. If you are just stamping an image, just a normal dye ink, It's quick drying. It won't smudge on you as you're going, and you'll find that you'll be able to pick up your image and look at it and exclaim about how wonderful you are. Okay, without it smudging or waiting for it to dry or anything else. And then look at what you've got sitting around home. They might be lids off takeaway containers. As long as it's clear so that you can see where your image is, otherwise you might as well be working with a wood mount stamp. But if you can see where your image is, you can stamp with it. So you can, by all means, go out and get yourself acrylic blocks, or just have a look at what you've got around home to start with. That way then you can work out if stamping is what's for you. If you find that you're going to get use from stamping, if stamping will take you so many places. There are so many things that you can do with stamps for, as I said before, whether you're into journals, whether you're into scrapbooking, whether you're into card making, other paper crafts, mixed media, all sorts of things. But to find out to start with, just utilise what you've got at home. You don't need to spend a fortune to start off. I hope you've got something out of that today. One other day we'll go through inks and your different types of inks, but go out and stamp, guys. You'll find it is the most wonderful thing to do. I am the biggest stamp advocate in the world. I love stamping, and I hope you get some love from it as well. Thanks for that, guys, and I'll see you next time.